Okay, not going to do a whole explainer of the series. If you've been watching it, you've been watching it. If you haven't and just wanted to tune in for the top five, screw you, you know? No, not really. But, like, all the explanations in the other ones will be, I'll be assuming you have watched them or are familiar with what I'm doing. And we're going to talk about the big five, which you could argue should include Doc Evil, but I'm going to start with GreatSephiroth. So obviously we're going to kill the 12 to 14 period, and he has a 68 game period at 76%. If we compare that to Nightwish, Nightwish was 71 games at 76%, slightly longer, slightly lower win rate. Basically, the question is, can we give GreatSephiroth credit for going 2-1? Now we know he didn't; he went 0-2, but I think with this resume you can. So GreatSephiroth barely ahead of Nightwish, very similar records. Given that I think Doc Evil had some margin, GreatSephiroth isn't supplanting Doc Evil here, but yeah, slightly out of Nightwish. Very, very close. Very, very close, but just ahead. When the tournament count is one apart, right, then I don't care so much about the differences in games played because it's obviously a very similar count. And they've both already played so many that we can start believing in their numbers. Obviously, like one tournament, good tournament for either one would switch who's ahead here, one bad tournament. These are very close scores. And they are our second and third place right now. Again, shout out to Kamikaze, still the only player to make the list twice. But you can also see for my top 11 of all time, Koner, Slash, and Kamikaze all played 80 to 90 games at a 70% plus level. MC played about 70 games at a 70% plus level, but has the highest peak run within that of any of those players. So you could have him as the weakest. He did it not quite as long and as dominantly, I think, as they did. But at his best, he's a bit more dominant. Nightwish also only did it for 70 games, but there is a clear jump. You know, they're over 70%. Nightwish is over 75%. GreatSephiroth did it for about 70 games, also over 75%. That jump seems pretty meaningful to me. Now, here we get into the top four. As always, the top four could be in like any order, and I think it would be reasonable. My Hall of Fame ranking happens to have them in a particular order. I think the stat we're looking at today will agree with that order, but these are the four players that in my mind have a serious case for GOAT. You can make the case for Doc Evil. In my mind, it's these four. If you pick any of these four, I'm not going to argue with you too much. I'll probably argue with a bit. I'm pretty high on myself. But these four players are, like, to me, the Mount Rushmore. Having them as the top four is more important than the order within it. Let's see if today's stats bear that out a bit. So in fourth place, we have Delial. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of periods in Deli's career, which is why, if you look at overall win rates, Delial's clearly the lowest of the top four. But it's also, he's played the most. He's gone in and out of activity, in and out of dominance. I talked many videos ago about how, as of 08, Doc Evil, Cookie, Sujiro, Mafi Josie, and Kamikaze should probably be the top five for GOAT. Probably not in that order, but that should be the top five. I think by the end of 08, Delial has broken that. Obviously, we're going to get rid of his 06. Who cares if you start slowly? But the rest is all relevant to us. Let's get rid of 22-23. Incidentally, he's had really rough competition for that run, but it still adds something to go 9-7. That is a good record. Obviously not a big part of his case, but this is not the category for big parts of your case. Hurt by the closed tournament. You know, happens. Okay, what to get rid of next? Now, I think let's do the 19-5, because we're definitely not going to combine that with the 8-6. Where does 19-5 land you? Well, it's definitely better than 14-5. It's definitely better than 17-5. Is it better than 39-19? go 19 and 5. So you'd have to go 20 and 14. At this point, we can probably be assuming for runs in the special run category that you can put up clearly over a 60% value. This requires 59%. Okay, it's ahead of Caps. So 19 and 5. Is it ahead of 34 and 14? Would have to go 15 and 9. That's just 62.5%. I think it beats that. Sujiro would have to go 20 and 11. I think it beats that. But that one's much closer. It's only 6 tournaments played, 19 and 5, because he did win one. Can you assume... All right, how about versus Akiyama? 19 and 5. We'd need to go 16 and 8. So it starts being you have to assume about 2 to 1 to beat these. It is a much smaller sample. I'm probably being a little harsh to Deli here, and you might put him higher on this part. But I think it lands here. But note, this means Deli is going to have 2 top runs, which is only been done by Kamikaze, and his runs are going to be better than Kazi's. So that gets rid of this. Then there's the question, do we want to combine 9-12 with 13, or do we don't want to just cut 20-13? So 9 and 12, he goes 39 and 20 for 66%. This is clearly going to be just behind Caps, right? So the question is it worth adding 8 and 6 to that? So that would be 47 and 26. Kaus would need to go 8 and 7. Kaus can go 8 and 7. This does not help the resume, but it will. 8 and 6 is good enough to land in our tiny bonus category. Probably right equals Maki Josie. So Delial now has 3 different parts of his career. Sorry, 2 different parts of his career that have made it, and he has at least 2 more left to make the list, right? We can put this one in. This is right behind Kaus Debonair. So we haven't even done Deli's peak, and he already has a top run, a special run, and 2 solid runs. So this is the thing that I really wanted to highlight with doing this kind of list, is you take someone like Deli's average, and it's not as high as some players because it has some lower periods, right? But you start breaking it down into sections and you go, oh, the low periods actually, like, we shouldn't treat them as, you know, he's 57%. That lowers your win percentage if you were at 75, right? We shouldn't treat it like that. We should note, oh, that was a down period. He was still pretty good. That's probably greater than, like, neutral value. That probably adds a little to his career. Maybe it doesn't when you're so high up. Maybe those are neutral, but they shouldn't hurt him. And if you just take overall win percentage, they do. And if we break it down this way, I think you find something more interesting, which is he's had these 2 periods where he was perfectly solid. He's had a period, a really long period, 4 years, where he was special, and a period of 3 years here where it was just a top run. And we're yet to do his best run, which is his legendary 07-08 run. I have argued in the past that he or Seto should be seen as GOAT at the end of 08. At the start of 08, probably the 5 I mentioned earlier. Maybe Seto's already in there. But by the end of 08, Deli is not just in the conversation, but maybe at the head of it. 32 and 7. Nope. 80%. That's pretty good. We've only seen that once before, and it was meta. But that was over 3 tournaments. And Deli's is over 9 tournaments, because he won multiple tournaments in here. Let's compare to GreatSephiroth. 32 and 7. He would have to go 20 and 9 to catch GreatSephiroth. That's a little over 67%, but he's at 82%. Much like where Doc Evil, if he looks tied with you, if we assume he's winning at a 2 to 1 rate, if Deli's adding up to your total on a 2 to 1 rate, he's ahead of you. So then the question is Deli versus Doc Evil for the top spot. Now, Doc Evil would have to go 14 and 6, which is exactly 70%. And I was saying we should assume Doc Evil above 2/3. Should we assume him above 70% here? I don't know. I mean, I'm trying not to talk about Era much. The Era was relatively weak. His competition was very good, though, within that era. I think Delial's competition's tougher within his, but it's to say it's not a massive gap. But we just have such a small sample on Doc Evil, it's so hard to estimate. It feels weird to assume him at over 20% below, right? We tend to see, someone who's around 67%, we'd probably predict them around 57% for, the next stretch around it. But usually the next stretch around it is also significantly shorter than their peak run if they're maintaining something at all close, so it drops off fast. 3 tournaments from Doc Evil is just such a small sample to make any assumptions from, even though it is an absolutely legendary 3-tournament run, and 2 wins in the finals basically not been equal. It sort of has, but not quite the exact version. Things that look... I think this is really close. I know, 18-1 looks a lot better than 32-7, but I think everything we've learned about surrounding numbers says that Delial's score here is really, really close to Doc Evil's. But I think I want to assume Doc Evil at a little closer to 75% surrounding. Not if Deli's run was like 20 tournaments, I would start assuming Doc Evil at more like 70%. But given that Deli's run is 9 tournaments, so it's only 6 more for Doc Evil, right? He's not having to sustain it that long. I think I'm still going to have Doc Evil ahead. I think. Again, could go either way here. And I could have had Delial's rank here could have easily been a few spots higher. Not sure how many. Like, is it better than 25 and 8? It would have to go 6 and 3. Oh, he is going 6 and 3. Yeah, let's move that one up. Yeah. Maybe that belongs here. What does he have to do to equal Koner? He has to go 19 and 9. A little over 2/3. That's hard. What does he have to do to equal Slash? 5 and 2. That's over 70%. Actually, I'm going to move him up one more, but keep him behind Slash. And importantly, we know he didn't go 5 and 2 surround. So slightly higher win percentage, little less tournaments played. Yeah, I think. So, point is, this is why Deli is a top 4 player. He has a run that I really think is very comparable to Doc Evil's. I don't think is particularly worse. I think it's really close. And he has another run that's an all-time top run. Just one of the legendary runs. Let's call these legendary. Let's call this top. No, that's going to be so confusing. All right, we're going to keep names, just in case people have made comments and then switching what things are called. But the point is, he has 2 of these super high runs. There's only a few players with a run better than his second best run, and we have one here barely better than his first run. He has another run in the special run category. He is the first and potentially only player to have 3 runs special or above. He is the second player to have 2 top runs, and they're clearly better than Kamikaze's. If you look at them together, it's about 65 games, which you might say, 65 games, but that's less than we've seen from others. Yeah, but we were proud of like GS and Nightwish for landing at 75% over 70 games. Deli between these 2 runs is at 80%, over 80% over, a 65-game run. Deli at his best is better than everyone we've talked about. I think it clearly adds up to more impressive than Doc Evil, which is why I have him clearly ahead of Doc Evil in rankings I do. Deli's tremendous. We spent a long time on Deli, and now we have to talk about Seto. So that's going to take a while, too. It gets all messy at the top, because there's a lot they've done. There's a reason Deli's at the top. So let's talk about, for my money, Delial Seto is still the best rivalry in TTA history, and very possibly the 2 best players. Okay. There is no way that 85% from '06 to '08 wants '03 to '05 to join in. So we won't be combining this anywhere. 9 and 6 is clearly somewhere in the solid category. Probably around here. Again, I think longer is better, especially when this is not that much over 50%. So this run, clearly something that, like, nice, adds to the score, not very important. Okay. Next to look at is this 7 and 2 is clearly too short for me to make much of a difference, right? I do have an 11 and 2 placing very high. This is true. It's a good point. But I think we got to combine. So we're going to combine 12 to 22, and that will go 13 and 8, which is 61.9%. Okay. We have a bunch of choices here. I guess the first one is, how high does 40 and 7 get? What an insane win rate from '06 to '08. 40 and 7, 85%. Well, that's better than 32 and 7. Does this pass Doc Evil? Doc Evil would need to go 22 and 6. 22 divided by 28, it's going to be just under 75%. No. That's, that's 78%. I don't think you can predict Doc Evil to go 78%. I really don't. I understand people who think you should predict him to go 100% or 90 or 80. I think it's clearly so incredibly hard and rare for someone over a 7 tournament span, because that's what he'd need to go 79%. I don't think you can have that ahead of Seto. I think this run is our new number 1. Yeah. I feel good about that. And I think Deli's is really close to Doc as well. But, 47's clearly ahead of 32.7. Yeah, Seto number 1. SetoGoat.com. Do we want to add a 1-2 to that record? No. Do we want to add 16 and 6 to that record? I think also no. So we're going to get rid of the 1-2 because we won't want to combine that with anything. And the question is, do we want these separate or together? I think the answer is we probably want them together. But 15 and 4 gets us ahead of Mafi Josie. Maybe we don't want them together. It's ahead of Bren or around Bren. Yeah, so it's going to land somewhere around here. It's going to land basically right next to Deli's third best period. Now, if we combine them, we get 28 and 12. Do we see any records like that? Well, let's compare to Deli again. 28 and 12 needs to go 11 and 8. Yeah, so that beats Deli's score there, which means we do want to combine them. So 10 to 22, 28, 12. Should probably know what that is in my head. Is that 70%? 28 over 40? That's got to be 70%. Yeah, okay. 70% over 40 games. Combined with his 85% over 40 games, and you have 80 games at very close to 80%. But Seto, 28, 12, 70%. 40 games is, at 70%, is always making our top section. And so Seto becomes the third player to have 2 distinct top runs. That's crazy. Yeah, you can see why Seto and Delial are the best. They both have multiple top runs. Delial also has a special run to boot. They both also have solid runs in there. Seto now has my number 1 all-time run. Yeah, I mean, I think the top 4 are so clear. There are definitely people who have talent levels where you think they're close, but I think, and plus Doc Evil, right? But there's a reason these are the 3 80% scores. And Met's score, you can say that's over 80, instantly falls below if we add other tournaments, right? Once the sample is larger than 3, it's not in this conversation. which is, again, to say small samples shouldn't be trusted, which is, again, to say I don't know what to make of Doc Evil. But these three being not just the only things over 80% with any sample, but being like pretty comfortably over. Like it's not like 80.1. All of them are closer to 85 than they are to 80. I think there's 4 players, or if we include 5 players, Doc, that really stand out in TT history. And I don't think it's all that close. And that's not to say, GreatSephiroth, Nightwish, MC, Slash of Time, Koner, and Kamikaze are unbelievable players. But I think there's 4 that did stuff clearly above their level. And Vid, Akiyama, Turdz, Sujiro, Kaus. Sir Smokes is super underrated here, but Smokes, Chickeny. Like, there are other players, Bren's great run. There are other players that if they had kept something up or with more time might get somewhere near there. But I think, like, there's no one who looks like they joined that top group. The only questions are Doc Evil and Karma. Those are the only 2 players that look like they might be in a group with Delial, Seto, Yojimbo, and Wazzup. But the samples are too small. So I think there's a 4. There's a huge 4. And they are so far ahead. And even if, like, and sometimes it doesn't look like it from the numbers. Because sometimes it looks like, yeah, Delial kept playing when he wasn't that active. Like, he kept playing tournaments. And he was good, but not great. And that lowers his win percentages. But that doesn't change this at all. Like, we shouldn't hold that against him, and my numbers too often do. Because Deli has, at his best, is just about the best player ever. And at his second best is one of the best players ever. And at his third best is one of the best players ever. And at his worst is still very good, right? This is, tremendous players. And Seto's 06 to 08 run. I think by the end of 08, especially considering Seto was like pretty good leading up to that. Like, I mean, I know it's in this group, but like Seto's pretty good there. I think by the end of 08, it's Deli or Seto for GOAT. It's probably Seto, right? And then it might go back and forth depending on the year and the moment. But for a little while, I think it's between those 2. And I don't remember the order. Maybe Rhinoa was the end of the year. So maybe Deli claims GOAT like mid 08 and then Seto takes it from him at the end of 08. I'm not exactly sure the order. But I think it's just by the end of 08, again, I don't know when Kaus wrote his article about who was the best. I'm lazy and didn't check. When he wrote it, let's assume he was right and it was Doc Evil. But I think by the end of 08, that's not true anymore. I think by the end of 08, it's Seto or Deli. All right, let's get to Yojimbo. Are we excited? We should be excited. What kind of numbers are we going to see here? So Yojimbo, before I post it, I divided into 3 periods. And what I think is really funny is each of the 3 periods has 10 losses. And there is a steady increase in win percentage by about the same amount between the 3. So I think this is cute, right? You see him in 08-09. For 30 games, he's a 67% player. That's, somewhere in the special run category, right? That's probably... Actually, I mean, I guess that's a little worse than D. So that's like the top of the great run category, right? And then he goes to 31 and 10. Instead of 2 to 1, he goes to 3 to 1. And that's going to get you, somewhere in the top run category. That's basically cookie, right? That's 75%. And then he jumps into he hit the Seto Deli level, right? And you have this very clear progression. And it also makes me think if he kept playing and if there kept being tournaments, because obviously he basically stopped playing close to the end of the initial run, he's probably his current form is just to stay at that 80% plus level where he's already put up 60 games. And 60 games at 80% is longer than the others have maintained it. So let's get into scoring it. I don't think any of these we want to combine. We could combine these 2 to get to 5120, which is about 71 and a bit percent. And so if we put him at 70 games at 71 and a bit percent, that's going to be, you know, say just ahead of bit, right? It's going to be around here. On the other hand, if we take 31 and 10, that puts him around here with Cookie. So we're gonna do the most flattering thing as we have done throughout. So 20 and 10. That's worse than D's 30 and 15. It's the same win percentage, but not sustained as long. Mafi Josie would need to go 6 and 5 to catch up. No, that's behind that. That's clearly behind that. That's behind this. Chick needed it longer. He needs to go 16 and 10 to equal Piggy. That's close, but it's worse than Turdz, clearly. Turdz would need to go 1 and 2. Jadat would need to go 2 and 2. Worse than 20 and 10. I should have just found that and honed in on that. Tezuka would need to go 7 and 5. Reye would need to go 9 and 6. That's about borderline. It's better than Koner. I think it goes here. I think Yojimbo's initial run is the best initial run maybe we've seen, besides like Doc Evil. But like Piggyman and Smoke started good, but starting good meant in the 50%. Delial had a bad year to start. Seto started at around 60% over 5 tournaments. You know, that was this result over 6 tournaments. Starting at 2/3 is already, I didn't put the name in, so I couldn't find it, is already, this is like one of the hottest starts we've seen. Except players like Grat, where just basically their whole run is this. Grat started there, but never improved on it, right? Yojimbo starts here and gets better. It is one of the, like, if you had, you know, scouting reports, talent reports, this would be one of the best starts we've seen. And he tops it. Incidentally, we could combine these. We should think about that. If we combine these, it's very easy to do the math, because he'd be 80 and 20. He'd be 80% for literally 100 games. It's kind of tempting to combine. Let's see where he falls without it, and let's see if it would help him with it, because again, we're always kind of looking to do the most flattering version. So 49 and 10 compared to 40 and 7. Seto would need to go 9 and 3. That's really close. Delial would need to go 17 and 3. Okay, he's ahead of Deli here. Doc Evil would need to go 31 and 9, a little over 75%. He had to go like 78% to catch up with Seto. It's a little lower to catch up here, but I was setting the Doc Evil bar at around 75%, and at 75%, Doc Evil does not catch up. And so the question is, do we give Seto credit for 75%? That's really close. Okay, what if we combine them? Because I think right now he's neck and neck with Seto. If we combine them and make 80 and 20, 80% for 800 games, Seto and Deli both did 80% for 40, 50 games, right? That's the longest we've seen someone sustain 80%. Outside of them, the longest we've seen anyone sustain it is like 13 games. So like Deli and Seto are so far ahead. And he does it for 100. Now to equal that, Seto, very easy to do the math, would need to go 40 and 13 to get to 80-20. There's no way, right? There's no way we can expect that. 40 out of 53 is 75%. So the question before was, can we give Seto credit for 9 and 3? 75%, but over just 3 tournaments. This one, it's can we give credit for 75% over 13 tournaments? The answer is we cannot. We are going to combine these, and this is clearly first place. But dividing them up, so the argument for dividing them up, no, maybe we should divide them up. The argument for dividing them up is I'm not sure if he gets first. I think it's close. I think he probably comes second, but he gets 2 top runs. I wonder what Yojimbo would want here, right? Would he want something listed top spot, or would he want something listed second spot, but he has another incredibly high finish? I think he'd probably want top spot, but also spoilers, he's probably about to lose it at the end. So I think I'm gonna keep them separate. I'm gonna put this here. This is to say, Yojimbo's absurd, absolutely stupid good. Yeah, I think I'm gonna put it touch behind there, but then he also gets to go 31 and 10, which is clearly better than Cookie, right? No, touch worse than Cookie because Cookie maintained it longer. Okay. No, but it's 2 and 1. Yeah, at this point we're giving credit for going 2 and 1. So yeah, clearly ahead of Cookie. Does it equal MC? No, it doesn't. There's some gap here. Maybe I should let's call it GOAT runs. Because I think there's a gap here, right? We're seeing 31-10 versus 37-10. That seems like a reasonable place to do a cutoff. Let's actually break it up even more. Because I think this is, I think it's pretty clear. These are the, you know, there's a clear divide, and it's these guys. And I should make that separation. Yeah, we have the big four plus Doc. Well, we will when I get in there. We have GreatSephiroth and the Polish brothers. We have a bunch of absolutely incredible players. Everyone here has a case for being top 10 all time. We have players who either are players we've already seen, like Slash or Deli, or players that just had really tremendous runs, either because they sustained a really high level for a long time, like Kaus, or because they had these really short bursts, like Meta. Great runs, good runs, solid runs. And we're going to end on me. I'm going to try to not spend too much time on myself because, again, it's not all that interesting. I always divide up the Rebirth. In the Rebirth, I've had a run that looks pretty similar to Doc Evil, but I think we should just combine these. I think get rid of the 4-4. That doesn't help. And just say 09 to 23 and call it 66-11. That's 6 out of 7, whatever that is, 85.7%. And only one run, not like Deli or Seto, but very good run. 70 games, not just over 80%, but 70 games over 85%. If you want to compare that to Yojimbo's 100-game run, I would have to go 14 and 9 to get there, which is very likely. Like, this is definitely a better run than that. So whichever way we did Yojimbo, I think this comes out clear first. To catch me, Seto has to go 26 and 4. So like that's not, that's not very likely. So yeah, I think this is our final list. But what I like about this list is it's just very clearly these are the 5 best runs ever. They just are, like, by a large margin. Yeah, I'm gonna put Deli ahead of Doc because I think it is. There's a good case it isn't, but I think it is. These are the best 5 runs. Deli has the best supporting runs, followed by Seto, followed by Yojimbo. I have the worst supporting runs, which makes it really easy to arrange this however you want, right? You know, Deli's best run, I think, slightly worse than the others, but his second best run, better than the rest of us. So if you want to move him up to first, go for it. However you want to order these 4 is fine. Doc Evil somewhere in the conversation. Then you have GreatSephiroth and the Polish brothers. Incredible players, you know, the kind of players that could sustain 75% plus for a long time. Again, that's notably worse than our top tier, but it is fantastic. Then we have the could maintain kind of 70 to 75% for a long time players, which is just so difficult. And if we just skim the list, you know, this is top 19, 20-ish runs all time. Then we get these special runs. These are tremendous runs, not quite as good as this previous group. So our top runs, this is our top 5. This is our top 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. is our top 19. One, two, three, four, five, six. This brings up to a top 25 runs. Nice to have that cut off in case I ever want to use this for anything. How many in the great runs category do we have? They start to be more close together because normal distribution. You start seeing things closer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So this gets us to our top 43. Again, at this point, there are people not in my top 40 who have runs that are in the good and solid run category, and there are probably a few that have runs in the great runs category. So, like, if we included all great runs, this would probably get us closer to 50, but probably not that much closer. I'm not sure. But I would guess there are players not in my top 40 who have runs that would make the great run category, but very few. Good run, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is that right? Can I do math? Adding or counting? Yep, top 48. Solid runs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I mean, these are things that add to their career, but are not like the great runs in history. And I think that's true of good runs as well. Again, this is stuff that adds to what people have done, but is not the thing that makes them top. So yeah, I think these are 43 truly fantastic runs by a very not near as many as 43 players, because Delial shows up 36 times, but yeah, I like that TTA has a Mount Rushmore. There's a clear top 4, and then I think there's a clear next 7. And I have GreatSephiroth and the Polish Brothers pretty reliably as the better 3. And then Kamikaze, Koner, Slash of Time as the weaker 3 of the next 6. But it's close. Then after that, there's a whole crowd really pushing to get in. All of Vid, Akiyama, Cookie, and Turdz are active, which means there's a real chance one of them breaks in with some more good results. And honestly, the players who show up here are awesome too, so I'm glad I spent so much time on them and the videos about them. All right. Didn't even talk about people's styles. I was sort of thinking of coming into this and talking about, like, here's something I thought Mafi Josie did well while playing. I think D did a really nice job of setting up combos, giving himself chances for complexity against any player, which leads to high win rates versus strong players, but lower win rates versus weaker players, because he had a highly unbalanced style that led to decisive results in both directions. A whole bunch of things I wanted to say about players here, but I've been going like well over 2 hours on this whole series, so best to end it here.